All right, this is part 6B. This part is about internal security because in this, my lecture on the exclusive competence of the autonomous individual to decide for herself, the, the most challenging thing for libertarians is that the government needs to be there for external defense, and the second most challenging is that it needs to be there for internal security. Now, in the last lecture, I spoke about the incompatibility, where I played a lecture by one of the operatives in Cop Block on the incompatibility of society and government, and cops, and government cops, and society meaning a voluntary situation. In other words, government cops would be, cops would be much nicer and useful, just like, the local gas station owner, or the local, you can get a good auto mechanic or a good grocer or a good manufacturer or whatever. Some people, I suppose, think there are no good manufacturers, but you can get good people when there's competition. They want your service. And whereas if there's a monopoly, a forced monopoly like government, especially now that the federal government, which is even worse than the state and local governments, is actually causing the cops to be militarized and violent, as you all know now. People have been watching this for 20 years develop in an intense way since the federal government started militarizing the police, subsidizing them to try to control the people. That's what it's for. They want to make sure the people are sheepish and fearful. And of course, it isn't going to work. For one thing, we outgun the government probably, 10 to 1 or something like that. The other thing, the government isn't uniformly going to attack the people, although there are lots and lots of evil people in the government and a lot of evil cops, to be frank. You watch them all the time on YouTube, beating people up for no reason or no constitutional reason. And so anyway, here's an example. Dale Brown from Detroit, where it has turned into where the economy has collapsed and the cops are no longer afforded by the city, who, now will this open? Because my Firefox was actually redoing itself. Just a minute here. Yeah, here it is. Okay, this guy is really cool. It's Dale Brown. Also brought to you by CopBlock.com.
This episode of Cop Block is brought to you by FreeKeen.com.
In February of 2012, I posted a write-up to CopBlock.org titled, "Frustrated, Detroit Residents Compete with Police." Included in the story was a picture of Dale Brown, founder of the Threat Management Center. A year later, when I knew I was to roll through Detroit as part of the CopBlock tour, I reached out to Brown, who graciously welcomed me at his facility and shared with me some of his time and knowledge. It was definitely worth a stop.
My name is Dale Brown, founder of the Threat Management Center, located in Detroit. What Threat Management Center represents in general is how to properly manage human threats to create the most nonviolent outcome possible. I started in 1995 in the security capacity, helping the community deal with violent criminals. We're doing home invasions and murders in our area. I would call police. I would constantly reach out. And what I found was there was a general apathy and complacency where law enforcement was just not interested as a group. There were certain officers that were motivated, and those community-oriented officers bonded with our organization, and we were able to, with their assistance, create a condition where all the murders, home invasions, and other types of violent crimes stopped. The result of stopping the violence and the criminal activity was a good quality of life for the residents that lived there, which ultimately led to the building owners going into the black for the first time in 20 years. And it just took a couple of good officers And my staff consisted initially consisted just of me, a dog, and a rifle. And then it just grew from there. I just got volunteers from the community to help out. I got the building owners to give me one free apartment in each building and a small financial stipend. It didn't take much money, but it took lots of self-sacrifice. The key was to put the protection of the families before my own, and to think about one thing, which is good quality life for the people there. And the way to do that was to use not the legal system to prosecute people, but to prevent the conditions which could lead to violent encounters. And that includes having heroic law enforcement officers out there putting themselves at risk, not thinking about themselves, not thinking about getting home to their families safely at night, but thinking about the citizens getting home to their families first and foremost. We need that kind of policing. The kind of policing we have right now typically is an officer thinking about their own safety, and that's what they're taught. That false thought process means they can't truly protect anyone appropriately. The cornerstone for protection is love, not violence, not guns, not laws. You cannot and you will not truly protect anything that you do not love. But if you love something, love someone, love people, you can protect them. And it starts with yourself. Having people that love themselves, love their family members, love their community, love people in general, those are the people that can protect the best, because they will put themselves at risk for others. And that is the key. That level of intention and dedication is the key to stopping violent predatory behavior. You want these predators to realize there is no way they're going to achieve violence perpetrated against families or the people that are there, because when the violent predator sees them, they're going to realize this person's dedicated to the safety there, and they're going to back down. And if they don't back down, that person will be able to manage threats properly if they go through our training. And that's what really separates our organization from any other, is the fact that it really is designated and designed specifically to create nonviolence, but if there is going to be violence, to make sure that you're significantly capable of managing those threats properly. We constantly recruit. We're a performance-based organization. Our bodyguard program, which is called VIPER, stands for Violence Intervention Protective Emergency Response System. The foundation for its success is in the fact that the individuals that are in our organization, in order to participate, have to be altruistic. Our lifeblood of this organization is having people that are really talented, really motivated, and highly skilled by constantly training them. And those people that do not want to train or are not good enough are replaced by better people. We are not looking for people, and we do not accept people who are human predator oriented. So people that like to fight or people that like to shoot people. A lot of times guys come back from the military organizations, and I have to be careful, because we're not looking for the kind of mindset that says, you know what, it's okay to use violence as long as you can legally explain it. We're looking for people that don't want to use violence under any conditions. What we emphasize is 100 ways in a situation which would normally be fatal force oriented, 100 ways to not have a violent or fatal incident take place. We perform 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We protect communities here in Detroit, upscale communities like Palmer Woods, Sherwood Forest, and the golf course. We have approximately 1,000 homes that depend on us for safety, responding to them and their families in their emergencies. And we have approximately 500 businesses that are our clients as well. And then the people that cannot afford our services, we help them for free. The reason that we can do that is because there is a healthy profit margin left over from excellence from providing for our major corporations. We offer free training to families. We call Free Family Friday. Typically, the prosecutor's offices, the shelters in the area for domestic violence victims, stalking victims are sent to us for assistance. We protect them for free. We escort them to court. If they have a violent ex-husband or boyfriend or neighbor or some stranger that's coming after them, we will literally stay with them, transport their kids to school. We stay with them at their homes with our rifles and keep them alive. And in 20 years, none of us have had a court date, and more importantly, none of us have been killed. And the most important, no one who's ever come to us for help in 20 years has ever been injured or killed after coming to this organization. On Mondays, we have a free class for any sworn law enforcement officer. We're the state trooper that I've trained for 10 years who's in charge of the law enforcement section here. And we don't believe in being weapon dependent here. Here, guns are like a first aid kit, something you should have, but not something you should depend on. When they have an option to not injure someone, often they would choose that had their training system given that to them. And so that's one of the things we do, is try to fill a person's toolbox, thinking of their mental toolbox as the toolbox that you go around answering all your questions with. We make sure that in that toolbox are so many options to create a nonviolent outcome that it's almost impossible to have violence. So we show you how to get close, how to use psychology to to take that person's perspective and change it so there is no adversarial perspective. And if there is going to be one, you're so close, you can still take control of that person without injuring them. So it's all positive. Creating positive outcomes, nonviolence equals a prosperous outcome. And that's one of the things we want to encourage all communities, all corporations, law enforcement institutions to realize. It is focusing on the prevention of the conditions which leads.
All right, that's good enough. You see my point is that he's motivated. The private sector, that is a free society, free enterprise society, not the fascist society we have, which that has a private sector in that sense, is not motivated. And this one is. In this situation where you have somebody who's trying to provide service to people so that they'll patronize him, whereas the government doesn't have to do that because it has you by the proverbial testicles. So that is because you've let it have that, because the people have let the government exist and enslave us, basically, to this terrible, violent policing situation. Whereas, I mean, if you go to Disneyland or any of these places, or a mall or shopping mall, there's very little violence and crime because they're incentivized. Whereas the government is not. The government, in fact, is reverse incentivized. So that's the situation. How do I get out of here? Let's see.